Hello and welcome to the Women in Motorsports program. My name is Joe Samdiego. With me we have Amanda Kaufman, Ben Schneider from Grid Encore and LastCar.info, and making her Grid Network debut, Emily Sharp. Emily, welcome to the Grid Network team.
Thanks, everyone. I'm super excited to be here and really excited to be joining the team.
We're very excited to have you be part of the team, and of course, we encourage everyone invest in our team through Patreon. Colin, the show, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew have been investing in us for quite some time, helping us get to the track. We recently had Jackson at the track. We're getting more folks to the track. Ben will be coming out to Portland too. Invest through Patreon. Also, you can do a one-time investment through Buy Me a Coffee or YouTube Super Chat. If you're not watching us live, you see the little thanks button. That's a perfect way to get that done. And of course, $10 or more or join our Patreon, you get some Grid Network stickers mailed out to you. And the simplest way to support us, hit the subscribe button, the bell icon. Don't miss any of our programs right here on YouTube. And visit gridranking.com. Jackson and Matthew Bro have the latest articles from NASCAR and IndyCar. We got a busy weekend of motorsports coming up ahead, including, very excited, F1 Academy. They are back this weekend for a 2-race weekend. The Miami Grand Prix, that'll be headlining the show, but F1 Academy is back after their race at Jeddah. The main headline has to be Dorian Penn. Of course, Dorian Penn looked like she had swept the weekend, but then essentially what happened was she got disqualified after the second race for doing an additional lap after the race was done. Didn't you? So Abby Pullen now has the points lead. And one of the big things, Abby Pullen has 2 starts here in Miami in the W Series. 4th place, 6th place finish in those 2 races. But that was an F3 car. More horsepower compared to these F4 cars that have less horsepower. Emily, starting with you, does Abby Pullen have the advantage over Dorian Penn and other drivers? Or is that negated considering we got cars with less horsepower?
I mean, I think it's certainly going to make things interesting, right? With a car with less horsepower, I would say traditionally you have been to a track before. You do have that upper hand of the experience of racing there before. But I don't want to discredit the dominance that is Dorian Penn. So I think it's going to be extremely interesting to watch and make things a little bit more competitive for the ladies taking the track this weekend.
Yeah, I would definitely say that I think that having that knowledge of the track is definitely going to be a bit of an advantage for the drivers that have been there before. But like Emily said, I think that we don't want to underestimate the rest of the field and their ability to get up to speed with learning the track. And I'm sure they'll be ready to race come race time. So I think that while it's an advantage, I think that we're still going to see a pretty level playing field.
Well, first of all, I'll just echo what Joe said at the start. Welcome to the team, Emily. Happy to have you here, especially on this show. Any advantage that I think would be taken away because we're in slightly different cars than the W Series had, I think is going to be made up for by the fact that when you look past Dorian Penn, Abby Pullen wasn't just the one that inherited the race 2 victory by virtue of finishing second on track. She was also second to Dorian Penn in the first race as well. So after her, I think she's been the clear number 2 driver to start the season. Of course, we're only 1 round and 2 races in, so not a great sample size over the course of a full year or anything like that. So that could change heading into Miami, but I expect those 2 to be the top 2 drivers once again this weekend for sure, and Pulling especially based on that experience that she has in the W Series car, like you mentioned, Joe.
Now, of course, when it came to the W Series, they raced here. That included Neria Marti, Chloe Chambers, Emily Duhaus, and Bianca Bustamante. They all raced here in the W Series. Marti finished 3rd in the 2nd race here. That's the best finish out of any of the former W Series drivers in the field this weekend. Marti has 1 win, 7 podiums in F1 Academy, and is 5th in the points. Amanda, I got to ask you, overall, could this be a track where she could propel herself into the discussion as a championship contender?
Yeah, again, I think that having that track knowledge is going to help her out here, where she can focus a little bit more on just speed and doesn't have to spend as much time learning the track. And then she can just kind of focus on everything she needs to win the race and I think she can definitely be put into that discussion of who's contending for the championship up there with Abby Pulling and Dorian Pin. So yeah, I think that Marty definitely has a chance of making a name for herself as a championship contender at this race.
And I have to agree with Amanda's comments again. Having knowledge, being here before is certainly an advantage. And to Ben's point, we're early on in the season, so we can have some leader changes in their ranking, but we'll just have to watch and find out.
Very early on in the season, one of the big things, United States, for the first time, 3 Americans in the field. Chloe Chambers, as we mentioned, we have Leah Block, and the wildcard driver, Courtney Crone, in the field. Crone is from California, has been racing cars, sprint cars, LMP3, and speedway motorcycles. She's been racing since she was 3 years old, so she's been around motorsports for a long time. She is with Prima this race weekend and brings QVC sponsorship. QVC, first time motorsports since Jeff Bodine had a QVC sponsorship in the mid-90s in the NASCAR Cup Series. Emily, we have 3 Americans in the field. We're racing in the United States, and this race is going to be on ESPN. How big is this opportunity to build a fan base in the United States, in America, that saw the W Series come and then unfortunately went away?
I think you used the perfect word. It's an incredible opportunity to build a fan base. When we are watching women's sports, especially here in America, something that I always like to point out is those viewers most of the time have to go seek and find their media. They have to go Google, find where they can be watching the competition. So the fact that it's going to be airing on ESPN ahead of the Miami Grand Prix is just incredible coverage for fans to tune in. And then even further, the map of where women's sports is going in America, fans are saying that they want to be getting into this. I mean, perfect example, look at the Caitlin Clark coverage that happened following her contract signing for the WNBA. The time is now, and it's no better time to get fans excited about what women are doing in this sport. And I think the Miami Grand Prix is the perfect stage to be welcoming new fans in.
Yeah, I would definitely echo everything you just said, Emily, about how all eyes are on women's sports right now. And there's definitely a lot of excitement and buzz coming off of March Madness and just women's sports in general. And I think having 3 Americans in the field especially is great for a race like Miami, where I think in motorsport, it can be sometimes difficult to choose who you want to root for. When you think about more traditional sports, I feel like all of my favorite teams, all of my favorite players are just Philly sports teams, because that's where I'm from, and it's easy to connect with them that way. So I would say that having 3 Americans in the field will make it even easier for fans potentially just getting into watching motorsport to feel like they have a driver to root for. So I think it's a great thing.
Well, everyone knows I'm a big Philly sports fan as well. So you want to bring up the WNBA? I think that's the next city that needs an expansion team. I know the Bay Area is getting theirs next year, but I think the time's never been better because, like you mentioned, Emily, there's so much momentum, and it's not just Caitlin Clark. The entire draft class, next year's draft class, which looks to be led by Paige Beckers, it's a great time to start getting invested in women's sports in this country, I believe, and hopefully here with F1 Academy, even though motorsports is a little bit different, we don't segregate by gender at the top levels here, but I think, as we talked about on this show before earlier this season, this is still a great opportunity for young women to get into the F1 Formula Racing ladder here. And I think, being on the ESPN platform and family networks again is a great place for this series to be in, considering where they were last year, not being televised, to now being on a network like that. I think is absolutely huge for their reach there as well. So, like you said, to have 3 Americans in the field, I think it's just a cherry on top, because I think this series has a lot going for it in a country that has a lot going for it for women's sports right now. But then you factor in that, we have 3 Americans racing this weekend. I think you only need to look at the reaction from a lot of American fans based on what happened with Logan Sargent in Australia. I think that, people sometimes question how much of a difference does that really make. I think it makes a massive difference. So hopefully that difference comes through here for F1 Academy and gives it even more of a boost than it might have gotten otherwise.
Be very exciting. Of course, practice Friday. They got 2 sessions. Saturday, qualifying, followed by the first race. And then Sunday, the second race of the weekend for F1 Academy at Miami. We will recap the race weekend on our next program right here next week. Ben, let's switch to some news involving one person that we've had on grid tonight and making some big news, not just in the United States, but globally with Formula E.
Yeah, and making some news on grid tonight this evening. I say this evening as we're taping this. Of course, it'll be Thursday by the time everybody's watching this here. But as Kobe mentioned on this week's episode of Grid Tonight, the ABB Formula E World Championship made some big news earlier this week. Beth Paretta was introduced as the new vice president of sporting. Now, in her role at Formula E, she will oversee all sporting and championship activities. As the series celebrates its 10th season, she will also drive key stakeholder relationships and cultivate new business opportunities, working closely with the FIA, existing teams and manufacturers, and perhaps attracting new participants to the series. So Amanda, Emily, as Joe mentioned, Beth is a friend of the show. I think you could say at this point, we've had her on grid tonight. You both participated in the Women in Motorsports North America Summit at Phoenix not so long ago. How big of a win is this for Formula E to have Beth Paretta on board?
I think it's a huge win for Formula E. I think, Beth is uniquely qualified for the position, and I think that it's no secret that she's incredibly passionate about the sport in general, and I think she's always thinking of ways to improve the sport and has been a trailblazer in a lot of aspects in thinking about the future of the sport and ways to move it forward. So I think Formula E made the correct decision. I can't wait to see what she does in her new role.
I agree with everything that you said, Amanda. And what a better show to be talking about it on the Women in Motorsport show tonight. I do want to point out, as you had mentioned, Amanda, that Beth is incredibly passionate about inclusion and breaking down doors for not just the current women working in this industry, but for the next generation. And she is truly, in my opinion, the perfect person to be taking up this position in Formula E. Beyond her passion, Formula E is kind of widely known as one of the more inclusive and welcoming series to racers, the people that you see behind the scenes working in that sport, of welcoming people from all backgrounds, all communities, all races, all genders. And to have her at the helm kind of pushing this business forward into an even more inclusive environment is just incredible. So it's not only a huge win for her career, for women everywhere looking to be working in this industry, but truly a big win for Formula E and its fans.
Well, Emily, we're 10 seasons into Formula E here. The series is still struggling to find as big of a fan base as you might see in Formula One, NASCAR, IndyCar here in the States. Of course, Paretta is from here in the United States and has an extensive career in motorsport and the automotive industry. So do you think that a move like this could see more American-based business moves in Formula E? Could we maybe see an American manufacturer like Ford or GM come into the series? What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, having Beth tied to this industry is certainly going to bring in American audiences, both from a fan base and then, as you said, like a sponsor base. We continue to move forward to greener options as consumers, and certainly within the automotive industry. And 10 years, yes, we've been around for 10 years for Formula E, but in the grand scheme of racing, it's still a new little baby. So it's only good things from here. And again, if Formula E's team kind of promotes this the right way, they are a very inclusive sport. And using Beth to further kind of angle that, I think would be a really smart move for them.
Yeah, I have to agree. And I think it'll be interesting to see how Formula E continues to grow and promote the series within the US especially. And I think that if they're looking to attract US fans, definitely collaborating with American manufacturers is one way to get more eyes on the series that way. And obviously we race Formula E races here, so it has most of the building blocks in place already to kind of propel it into one of the series that U.S. fans are interested in. So it'll be exciting to see where the series goes from here.
Well, we have 4 more race weekends for Formula E this season, 8 races total. They're all doubleheaders, including the Portland E Prix, and we will be on site for that as we always have been. So be sure to subscribe to the Grid Network as we follow Formula E and all the other series in the Grid ranking. Now, Amanda, let's head over to Dover and cover the race weekend there for the ARCA Menard Series and Xfinity Series.
All right. Well, Dover hosted the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the ARCA Menard Series and the ARCA Menard Series East for a combo ARCA race, the General Tire 150. Tony Bradinger started in the top 10, while teammate Amber Balkin started in the top 15. Rita Goulet brought out the first caution when she spun inside turn 2 and did not hit the wall. Her husband, Tim, eventually took over the car before he also brought out a yellow, and the number 31 ended up finishing 23rd after completing 35 laps. Balkin made slight contact with the turn 4 wall before being involved in a much harder crash while exiting turn 4, hitting the inside wall hard while trying to avoid Christian Rose. Well, Ben, this is the first time the National ARCA Menard Series has run at Dover, and the ARCA East Series has been visiting consistently since 2020. What are your thoughts on the race?
Yeah, we talked about it on Encore on Monday night, and like Brandon and I have been saying for a long time now, I think it was time to bring the full ARCA Menard Series here because the East Series has struggled for car counts pretty consistently. Even back when it was still under the NASCAR K&N banner, I think the last year that was what the series was called was 2019. They had 13 cars show up to this race. So even before ARCA took over East and West, it's been struggling on the car count side a little bit. So bringing the entire ARCA series here of a national tour to Dover, I think was the right move, making this combo race with ARCA East. And I have to say, a pretty good race. A little bit of controversy with how Connor Zilic pulled off the win. I'm sure Williams Walsh wasn't too happy, but both of them are incredibly talented young drivers. I think have a bright career ahead of them in ARCA, and then we'll ideally see them move up to the National NASCAR Series here in just a couple of years. In terms of Amber Balkin, like you mentioned, Amanda, it was a very disappointing result for her because I think she was running relatively well before she had that accident, and unfortunately picked up a foot injury in that crash as well. It was very hard contact. She did everything she could to avoid Christian Rose, who got into the wall coming off at turn 4. And in doing so, because of how steeply banked the track is, even on the straightaways, caused her car to spin, hit the inside wall, and unfortunately injured her a little bit as well. But at the moment, NASCAR has cleared her to run this weekend at Kansas, so that'll be good to see. Obviously, she won't be 100%. She said on X/Twitter, but she's going to be using the clutch a little bit more than the brakes to try to help alleviate the foot injury that she has right now. But hopefully it doesn't cause her too much discomfort and she can go out and have as normal of a race weekend as possible here. And, we'll get into her teammate Tony Bradinger here in just a moment. But, yeah, unfortunately not a great day for the 3 female drivers in this Dover race here. But that's the business of motorsport sometimes.
Yeah, wishing her a speedy recovery, obviously. And like you mentioned, her teammate, Tony Bradinger, was running in the top 10 until an incident where exiting turn 4, she wasn't able to clear Chris Wright, and both ended up making contact. She managed to finish 15th while being 13 laps down. Was this a mistake by the spotter or simply hard racing at Dover where the momentum carries the cars towards the wall?
It was tough for me to judge because I think, certainly in a teammate situation, you don't want to be, racing that hard with that many laps to go in the race necessarily. And it's unfortunate that they came together. But Tony herself said on her X/Twitter account, made a mistake last night. So I guess in even her view, it was a mistake on the driver's part, which is unfortunate. And again, it's easy to do at a track like Dover. The speeds that these cars are carrying, it catches some Cup drivers off guard sometimes. Let alone ARCA drivers who are still trying to gain all the experience that they can. So, like you mentioned, it was unfortunate because she did have a good top 10 run going. She was battling with her teammate, Chris Wright, for position there. Unfortunately, just misjudged it slightly, and she came away with significantly more damage than he did and ended up falling down to 15th there at the end of the race. But, again, I think, like I've talked about on the show consistently for the last year, I think Bridinger's pace in terms of where she's able to run in these races has noticeably improved over the last couple of years, and this was no exception here at Dover. So we'll see, going back into the track where she had her career best to date, a third-place finish here last fall. Hopefully she can rebound from this and carry that momentum from last fall forward to Kansas this upcoming weekend.
Yep. Well, you touched on it a little. The ARCA Menard Series is headed to Kansas, like you said, and Mandy Chick will be racing for the first time since Daytona. Jennifer Jo Cobb will also make her return to the Truck Series at her home track, and we will recap her race and everyone else next week. And the Xfinity Series will be back the following week at Darlington. Hailie Deegan did not have a great weekend at Dover, unfortunately, finishing 31st after starting 29th. Any thoughts on the rough weekend and with Kansas coming up?
Yeah, well, I want to flash back to 2 weekends ago. I know we were off from the show last week. We didn't get to recap Talladega. And Degan, I think, was in a very good position at the end of the race. Just unfortunately couldn't get the drafting help that she needed. I think sometimes that comes with being a rookie in the series and being a little bit more inexperienced in those positions, even though she's had strong runs there in the Truck Series. Sometimes drivers, might be a little bit more hesitant to work with you, or, just the draft catches you out in the wrong way. And she ended up falling to 12th, which is still season best for her. So solid run for her. You hope that it would give her some momentum going into the starting months here in the month of May and the beginning of the summer for her. But Dover, unfortunately, not a great race for her. Got caught up in an accident early in the race and then was kind of behind the 8 ball from there. So, we're 10 races in now, only 3 top 20 finishes. Deegan definitely needs to find some of that positive momentum again and try to right the ship here a little bit. There is still time, but I think at this point it's a pretty safe bet that if she's going to be a playoff contender this year, she's going to need a win to do it. Talladega was probably her best bet, or one of her best bets here. We'll see. She's had some strong runs on road courses in the past. We've got a couple of those coming up with Portland, Sonoma back-to-back, and then we'll see if she can find a way to victory lane at the summer race at Daytona. That might be another opportunity for her. But with how far back she is in the points, I think it's going to take a win to have the playoff conversation for Hailie Deegan here in 2024.
Well, next week we'll be back to recap ARCA, F1 Academy, and the Xfinity Series. So I'll throw it to Joe to close out the show.
Yeah, we're all out of time, but definitely we're going to be very busy because we got a busy weekend of racing. Formula One, NASCAR, Kansas, Miami. Don't forget your pick a winner. You can find that all on our social media pages, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and of course right here on YouTube. You'll see the short video on the YouTube section when you subscribe and hit the bell icon. And of course, we encourage everyone, be sure to invest in great networks such as Colin the Show, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew have done. They help us pay the bills, stay on the air, get to the racetracks. We're very excited for 2024. Already hit more racetracks this year alone than the past 2 years. So we're very excited. And of course, YouTube Super Chat, the thanks button, and YouTube video membership as well too. And once you hit $10 or more, you get some Grid Network stickers sent out to you. It will be on the air for Grid Life Pre-Race Saturday, Sunday, the wrap-up show. Then Monday, Ben's going to be back with Grid Encore, Wednesday, Grid Tonight, and we'll be back here next week to recap F1 Academy and all the races and preview the upcoming races and news from the women in motorsports. For Emily, Amanda, and Ben, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time and enjoy the races.